Right, gather round, political junkies, because we're about to witness what might just be the most spectacular own goal in Labour's recent history. Picture this. You've just won a landslide election, the Tories are in shambles, and you've got 5 years to cement your legacy. What do? Well, if you're Rachel Reeves, apparently you decide to pick a fight with the one group of people who literally feed the nation. Brilliant strategy, Rachel. Absolutely genius. It's like deciding to tax oxygen and then wondering why everyone's a bit breathless about your policies. Welcome back to UK Pancakes, where we serve up British politics with extra syrup and zero filter. Today, we're diving into what could be Labour's biggest blunder since Gordon Brown called that woman bigoted. And trust me, this one's got legs. We're talking about Rachel Reeves' inheritance tax raid on farmers, a policy so spectacularly tone-deaf it's got Labour peers publicly questioning whether the party has just torched their chances of a second term. And when your own side starts throwing you under the bus, you know you've messed up royally. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how a Chancellor spreadsheet obsession might have just handed Reform UK the keys to rural Britain on a silver platter. And spoiler alert, it's messier than a combined harvester in a muddy field. Let's start with the star of our political horror show, Baroness and Malalier. Now, this woman isn't some backbench nobody having a whinge. She's Labour royalty, a trailblazing barrister who was breaking glass ceilings before it was fashionable, and she's been president of the Countryside Alliance for over 25 years. When she talks, people listen. And right now, she's absolutely furious with her own party. We're talking nuclear levels of disappointment here. The Baroness has delivered a verdict that would make even the most optimistic Labour spin doctor reach for the gin. Labour has knocked out its chances of a second term. Not weakened, not damaged, completely knocked out. That's not political hyperbole. That's a political death certificate being signed in real time. She's basically saying Rachel Reeves has taken Labour's electoral prospects out behind the barn and put them out of their misery. But here's where it gets properly grim. This 79-year-old Baroness, who's seen more political drama than a Netflix series, says she knows of 2 people who are genuinely threatening suicide because of these tax changes. Let that sink in for a moment. We're not talking about slightly increased paperwork or minor inconvenience. We're talking about policies so devastating that people are contemplating ending their lives rather than face the consequences. Now, Rachel Reeves might be brilliant with numbers, but she's apparently rubbish at reading the room. The policy in question? A 20% inheritance tax on agricultural assets over £1 million. Sounds reasonable if you're sat in your Westminster bubble thinking farmers are just countryside millionaires playing with tractors for fun. But here's the thing about farming. Embrace yourself for this shocking revelation. It's actually quite expensive to run a farm. Who knew? The brutal irony here is delicious in its stupidity. Reeves wanted to boost productivity in agriculture, but she's created a policy that actively discourages investment in farms. It's like trying to encourage people to exercise by taxing their gym membership. Counterproductive doesn't even begin to cover it. As Baroness Malalier puts it, if the Chancellor wanted productivity, she couldn't have thought of a worse way to produce it. That's not just criticism, that's a masterclass in political sarcasm from someone who clearly doesn't suffer fools gladly. And let's talk about the electoral mathematics here, because the numbers are absolutely brutal for Labour. The Baroness has dropped a truth bomb that should have every Labour strategist breaking out in cold sweats. It is not possible for a Labour government to have an overall majority unless they have rural seats. Read that again. Labour cannot win without rural constituencies. Cannot. Not it would be difficult, or it would be challenging. It is mathematically impossible. So what's Labour's brilliant response to needing rural votes? Systematically alienating every farming family in the country. It's like needing someone's help and deciding the best approach is to punch them in the face first. The strategic genius is breathtaking. But wait, it gets better. Because while Labour is busy torching bridges in the countryside, guess who's waiting with open arms and a big smile? Reform UK. Nigel Farage must be sending Rachel Reeves a thank you card every morning. She's basically become Reform's best recruiting sergeant, delivering exactly the kind of disaffected voters they need to break into mainstream politics. The Baroness doesn't mince words here either. What they have also done is to drive people to reform. Not might drive, not could drive, have driven. Past tense. Done deal. These aren't potential future defectors. These are people who've already mentally checked out of the Labour project and are looking for alternatives. And here's the kicker. Labour MPs in rural constituencies are very worried. Not slightly concerned, not mildly anxious, very worried. That political speak for absolutely bricking it. These MPs know they're going to be the ones facing angry constituents at the next election, trying to explain why their party decided farming families were fair game for tax raids. Now, let's talk about the human cost of this policy genius, because it's where things get really dark. Farming is already a very lonely job, according to the Baroness, but now there's a profound depression spreading through rural communities. People are having sleepless nights because of government policy. Think about that for a moment. The government you voted for is now causing you to lose sleep with worry about your family's future. This isn't just about money, though the financial impact is devastating enough. It's about the complete destruction of family legacies, generations of work potentially wiped out by a chancellor who seems to think farming is just another business sector to squeeze for revenue. These are families who've worked the same land for decades, sometimes centuries, and now they're being told they might have to sell up because they can't afford to inherit what their parents built. The Baroness speaks from personal experience here, and her background is fascinating. Her family used to swap pigs with Aneurin Bevan. Yes, that Aneurin Bevan, the founder of the NHS and Labour legend. They had direct, practical experience of rural life, understood how farming actually works rather than seeing it through the lens of Westminster economics. But today's Labour MPs? They think they understand the countryside because they have weekend cottages. It's like thinking you understand surgery because you've watched Grey's Anatomy. The Baroness is scathing about this disconnect. Politicians who have absolutely no idea how their neighbors live are making decisions that will destroy those neighbors' livelihoods. This touches on something deeper about modern politics, the growing gulf between those who make decisions and those who have to live with the consequences. When you've got very few people in government with any direct contact with farming, you get policies like this inheritance tax raid. It's governance by spreadsheet rather than understanding. And let's be honest about what this really represents. It's class warfare wrapped up in progressive taxation rhetoric. Labour has decided that anyone who owns farmland must be wealthy, ignoring the reality that many farming families are asset-rich but cash-poor. They are sitting on land worth millions but struggling to pay the bills each month. It's like taxing someone's family home at mansion rates when they're earning minimum wage. The political timing couldn't be worse either. Labour is still in its honeymoon period, but they are already creating the kind of deep resentment that takes generations to heal. Rural communities have long memories, and they don't forget when a party attacks their way of life. This isn't just about one election cycle. This could poison Labour's relationship with rural Britain for decades. The Baroness herself embodies this tragedy. Here's someone who genuinely loves farming, who used to be lambing sheep during the night and then go off to the Old Bailey for her legal career. She represents the kind of authentic connection to rural life that modern Labour has lost. She worked alongside Sir John Mortimer, defended controversial cases, broke barriers as a female barrister, and maintained her passion for agriculture throughout. But now she's watching her own party systematically destroy the communities she spent her life defending. The irony is heartbreaking, a lifelong Labour member having to call out her own government for policies that could drive people to suicide. And what about Rachel Reeves herself in all this? The Baroness notes she was recently seen in tears in the Commons chamber, but adds with devastating precision, she has caused a great many people to be in tears. A great many. That's not just political point scoring. That's holding a mirror up to the human cost of policy decisions. The broader implications here are staggering. If the Baroness is right, and Labour has indeed knocked out their chances of a second term, we could be looking at a one-term government that achieves very little beyond alienating key voter groups. It would be a colossal waste of the political capital they built up in opposition. Meanwhile, Reform UK must be absolutely delighted. They've been trying to position themselves as a party of forgotten Britain, the voice of communities that mainstream politics has abandoned. And here comes Rachel Reeves, gift-wrapping exactly those communities and delivering them to Reform's door with a bow on top. The strategic stupidity is almost artistic in its completeness. Labour needed to consolidate their electoral coalition, win over floating voters, and demonstrate competent governance. Instead, they've launched an unprovoked attack on a group that was never their enemy, created a human crisis in rural communities, and handed their political opponents a perfect recruiting tool. This is what happens when you govern from ideology rather than understanding. When you see farmers as wealthy landowners rather than food producers working incredibly hard for often modest returns. When you think inheritance tax is just another revenue stream rather than a policy that can destroy family businesses overnight. The saddest part is that this was entirely avoidable. Nobody was demanding a tax raid on farmers. This wasn't a manifesto commitment that Labour had to deliver. It was a choice, and they chose poorly. They chose to pick a fight they didn't need to have with people who weren't their enemies. And now they're discovering that actions have consequences, that real people are affected by Westminster decisions, and that political miscalculations can have devastating human costs. The Baroness Melodier's intervention isn't just a wake-up call. It's a political obituary being written in real time. So there you have it, folks. Rachel Reeves set out to boost productivity and ended up potentially destroying Labour's electoral prospects instead. She wanted more tax revenue and created a human crisis. She thought she was being tough and smart, but she might have just handed the next election to her opponents on a plate. That's all for today's serving of political chaos from UK Pancakes. Thanks for watching. And remember, in British politics, the most spectacular disasters often come from the most unexpected places. See you next time.